there was a poll in October or November 25 by the regime. It was a secret poll that was accidentally revealed to the media, to their media. 92% of the Iranians hate the regime. They are not satisfied with the regime because today they see the real face of the regime, killing the women, killing the minorities, hating just for nothing Israel or US. You know, the most famous slogan in the Iranian protests from 2009. It's not even about Iran. They say no to Gaza, no to Lebanon. I only live for Iran. This is amazing. They know that their money goes to Hezbollah, to Hamas, and they say no. We don't want that.
Right now, the world is watching Iran. Talks, escalation, global pressure, but most people still don't understand how this regime actually thinks. My guest today does. Dr. Beni Sabti is an expert on Iran at the Institute for National Security Studies. He was born in Iran, grew up under the regime, and later escaped, spending years studying how Iran thinks, negotiates, and operates. And he said something chilling. The collapse doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, and then one day your life is gone. Dr. Sabti, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
I want to start from the beginning. You grew up in Iran. What did everyday life look like for you as a child? You said that the collapse happened slowly. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. I was born before the revolution, so I remember a little bit about how it was in a kind of secular country. On the surface, yes, it was a secular country in a very good relationship with the Western countries, of course, US and even Israel. We had a lot of cooperations between Israel and Iran about our agriculture, about security issues and systems, and many other issues. So on the surface, it was a very friendly and even lovely country, kind of the USA of Middle East. Iran was very strong and very rich, but they didn't pay attention to things that happened under the surface. The Islamists and the very radical lefty groups, they joined hands and they cooperated for many years, especially in 70s, against the Shah, the king, and what they called imperialism of US and Israel inside Iran. And slowly they brought this ideology, old new ideology, to the people from the mosques or from some gatherings in universities or other places. So they brainwashed the people. If it's familiar for you and it's happening in the campuses in US today, don't be surprised because it happened before in Iran in the 60s and 70s. So slowly they brainwashed the people until it came to that place of being ready to make the revolution. I remember before that, the cafes, the beaches, the boys and girls, universities in Iran, everything was kind of Western. In a few months, these gatherings became demonstrations of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands against the Shah, against US, against Israel. After around 1 year of demonstrating and many attacks against Shah army or soldiers, the revolution succeeded and the regime or the country became a whole different thing from a secular country and with a lot of relationships with West. It became a closed, isolated, Islamic, half left, half communist country, and suddenly new rules came to Iran, like hijab, dressing by the rule of the government, and many other things that they weren't there before that. Many Jews escaped Iran in that days, in the early years of this, of course, and also many Iranians escaped there because it was not a situation that you can handle. We thought that it's possible to stay there for 8 more, 10 more years, but we also couldn't handle that. After around 9 years, we ran away from Iran because of all this depression by IRGC and also Iran-Iraq war. I had my first missiles in Iran. So this is the reason that we had to leave, because a radical regime gets in every aspect of your life. It's not only about hating US or hating Israel outside of the house. They come to your house, they check what you drink, what you wear, what you believe in. They come to your synagogues, to your churches. The Christians also much suffer from Iran regime since then and until today. So it's not a nice place to stay with.
Were there things that you or your family were afraid to say out loud? What did people actually believe? What did they pretend to believe?
Well, in this Islamic regime, you don't go outside and you say loudly that you are Jewish. This is the first thing that you hide. And after that, of course, your opinions about freedom, about liberalism, about democracy, mostly Jews and also my neighborhood that I lived in, they were middle class people and they believed in freedom, in liberalism. Even the Muslims, they were not with this new Islamic regime. Even we had some high officers of the last regime of the Shah army in our neighborhood, and they had to hide their past or their opinions. You know, it's because, as I said before, it comes inside your house. You cannot even hear music. It's not even about opinions. So you hide everything. You hide, I don't know, that you have other clothes or other kind of way of thinking. Or today, if you go into internet, now they don't have internet, but when they have, so they bypass the regime if they want to be in Western sites or Instagram and to see other kinds of things. So it's all the time about hiding and mouse and cat play, kind of running all the time, and it gets you very tired. It's a very hard thing to live under this regime. When you live there, everything you do or say, it must be planned. So this is not a good place to live in.
Do you think that the situation got worse over the years, meaning the Jewish community that's there now? How much are they suffering? I know someone whose parents are still there, and when he speaks to them over the phone, they cannot say anything that's going on. They have to pretend that everything is fine. But what is it like right now for the Jewish community in Iran?
Well, it's a little bit complicated because in the 80s it was very bad. As I said before, we had the depression. They closed a lot of synagogues. They closed the high school of the Jews. So the young people cannot meet each other, cannot exchange opinions and talk. This was the reason that many Jews left Iran in the 80s. About 100 or 110,000 Jews left Iran in the beginning of the revolution and the years after that. When Khomeini died, the new leader was a little bit afraid of the West. He put some of the actions of the regime aside. He gave a little bit more freedom about some aspects, some technical aspects. For example, they didn't go every day and say in the 80s, especially in the 90s, they didn't go and say every day death to Israel and we have to eliminate all the Jews. Things got a little bit more calm. And this is the reason that the Jews, 10,000, about 10,000 of them, they didn't leave Iran anymore in the 90s and in the beginning of the 2000s. But these kind of regimes cannot hide the truth about themselves. In 2005, change and the reality about the regime came out again. And we went back to the ages of the 80s of Khomeini. When Ahmadinejad came to the position of presidency, we had again all these anti-Semitic sayings, all the pursuing of the Jews or being so much against Israel and Holocaust, all the things that maybe you remember about them. So things got worse. This kind of regime cannot hide its ideology. Also, giving more and more budgets to propaganda against Jews, against Christianity, against the West as a West, activities, terrorist activities in Europe, in America, in Canada. All the things began again in the early years of 2000, and they are still going on, and it got worse and worse during the years. Even when we had that agreement between Iran and US, the JCPOA, they didn't stop thinking about elimination of Israel and all Jews. So things again got worse for Jews also in Iran. because of these reasons, they today are much more obeying the regime. They have to say whatever the regime wants them to say. For example, we had these two wars between US and Israel and Iran. So they had to pray for the health of the leader and the regime and the for the rockets or missiles that they shot on us in Israel. And they had to curse Israel or US and having prayers against Israel, like we are the small Satan and America is the great Satan. So they are living again like in the 80s in that lie of not actually kind of not being a real Jew. So I think it's a very bad thing to live there and lying to yourself and lying to your community. As you said, there are some people that have relatives here in Israel or in US and they cannot even talk to each other. Even a few, very few friends, and you hear the sadness in their voices when you talk to them. It's not only about the inflation and bad economy and lack of electricity or water. Jews always manage somehow to have a good life, but you cannot live in the lie. This is the most and biggest problem for the Jews. And I wish for them to get out as soon as possible because it's getting worse and worse. Maybe we can have the third war against Iran and we are back in the very bad days.
Now, the regime will claim that we don't have a problem with Jews, we have a problem with Israel and Zionists. That's kind of what they say out loud. Do you think that they're lying when they say that?
Yes, of course. There is no doubt. For example, they had a few days ago, they had a ceremony for the former leader of Iran regime, Khamenei, the father. It's a very ridiculous thing to make a ceremony in a synagogue for that murderer that jailed or even killed many Jews inside Iran. Of course, many Jews and Israelis outside of Iran. The Argentina attacks happened in his period, in his leadership in 92 and 94. And of course, giving budgets and ammunition and training to Hezbollah, to Hamas, and making the missile program, nuclear program. It all happened in the 37 years of Khamenei, the father. He was not a good leader, even not to negotiate with. He hated West, he hated Israel. And Jews are forced to make a ceremony in a synagogue for him. So this is the biggest lie, and the representative of the regime is sitting there, a man and the woman. You can see from their dresses that they are Muslim, they are not Jew, and they are praying for the success of the regime, and they are crying for Khamenei, the father. This is not a good thing. This actually shows you how the depression is so hard in these days, how it's so bad, and they are forced to do everything that's happening there. I think uniting these families and bringing them out of Iran and joining the families in Israel or in America, it's the better thing to do, and not being there for maybe some economic or financial reasons. We have to save their lives, and they have to decide to save their lives themselves.
Now, does Iran think fundamentally different than the West? What's their psychology? Is it a mistake to assume that Iran thinks the way that we do in the West?
Yes, they think in another ways. The main problem and the challenge with Iran is not understanding the meaning of the word resistance. It's not the European resistance or the French resistance in the World War II. It was against a foreigner. In Iran, the resistance is against the ideology that doesn't fit your ideology and your radical way of thinking. They hate all kinds of others. And the first other is the women, even inside their houses. They hate actually their women, their mothers, their daughters. As you know, from time to time, we hear about a woman that was killed because of her hijab, or a daughter that heard the music or something like that, or went and talked to some boys. This is the first other that they hate. And the others, of course, are the minorities inside Iran. And after that, the Western way of living and culture and Israel and ideology of liberalism and democracy. And when they cannot eliminate all these others, they resist to them. This is a way of living in Iran regime. If you cannot eliminate them, you have to all the time be prepared to attack again. And if you are not powerful enough, you just resist. You don't do as the others behave or do or think. They made it as a way of life, and it's a very bad problem because it hurts the economy, it hurts the way of thinking, and you cannot have progress even in sciences when you think all the time that the West is bad. So you don't learn from the West. If there are some, I don't know, progress in medical services or engineering, even technical things, but if you hate those who made that progress and you don't read their books because you just hate them, so you don't make that progress. This is the reason actually that Iran is behind many years in many aspects, in medical services or in buildings or of course other things in communications. Things are just look like in the 60s or 70s. Yes, maybe we have some beautiful houses in north parts of Tehran and everyone sees that and say, oh wow, Iran is very progressed. No, if you go 2 streets southern than that, you see the real Iran that still are poor, are depressed, are brainwashed. Of course, the propaganda is a huge part of that. So this is the main thing that the West doesn't understand, that the resistance is in their blood. They don't accept you. And so you cannot negotiate with that thing that doesn't accept you. The moment that they accept their women, their minorities, for example, the Kurds, the Baluchis, the others, or of course, they, they respect the other way of thinking, maybe we can have some negotiations or talks with them.
Now, you mentioned propaganda. How much of the population actually believes the propaganda that the regime puts out? And did the internet make it harder for the regime to push out their propaganda?
Yes, this is a very good and important question. The Iranian people were just like the regime in the 80s and until maybe the years of 97, 98. They were almost the same. And they believed that propaganda that we have to eliminate Israel, US is our enemy, or we are poor because of them. They took our oil, all these lies and slogans that regime brought to the people. But since the internet got into Iran and also Iranian diaspora TV channels also that they broadcast to Iran by satellites. So Iranians know more and more about their situation, about what is going on in the West, how good is to live in the West because of the values of liberalism and respecting each other and not hating only the other way of thinking. In these 30, 35 years, we see that Iranian people are changing. And actually, most of them today hate the regime. There was a poll in October or November 25, the regime. It was a secret poll that was accessed to the media, to their media. So it's accurate, I think. 92% of the Iranians hate the regime. They are not satisfied with the regime, about the economy, about the lack of water and electricity, and about many other aspects. But the main thing is that the regime wants them to think like the regime. Only 8 to 10% of the people are loyal to the regime. And maybe it's about some interests and some profit that they have from that loyalty. But 90 or 92% of them are hating the regime because today they see the real face of the regime, killing the women, killing the minorities, hating just for nothing Israel or US. You know the most famous slogan in the Iranian protests from 2009. It's not even about Iran. They say no to Gaza, no to Lebanon. I only live for Iran. This is amazing. They know that their money goes to Hezbollah, to Hamas, and they say, no, we don't want that. We want our money for ourselves, for our roads, for our infrastructures, for our products, and to make progress in universities. 60% of the Iranian students immigrate after 1 year, after the graduation. They don't want that. So, because of all these reasons, they want a change in Iran, and internet has a great job. This is the reason that actually, since the last war and since the protests that they had, they are not bringing the internet back, because they see that the people know the truth through the internet. So they are not returning it to the people.
Now, when Iran negotiates with the West, with the United States, do they really want to reach a deal, or are they just trying to delay and gain some leverage from this?
Exactly. They just want to delay the other steps, the attack or sanctions or other negative things that can come to them. They are not speaking the truth when they come to negotiations. Exactly the same thing happened in 2013. Unfortunately, there was other administration in US or in the European countries that they accepted the Iranian regime lies, and they made an agreement that it didn't last. It was not just because Trump administration that he got out of the agreement. It was because Iran regime began to hurt the agreement and to do other things, enriching uranium during the agreement, helping Hamas and Hezbollah and giving them money and ammunition, as I said before. So they make an agreement with you and they lie to you, and they still going and bypassing you. So this is a very important thing that we have to remember. I think this is the reason that President Trump is not going for that agreement anymore. He knows about their lies. He and Israel attacked Iran twice because that they are not trustable. I hoped that some other figures can come out and take the regime, and not these generals now in these days. Maybe it can happen, as we said before, change happens slowly. Maybe we are in the beginning of the bigger change. We are in the bad days of the change, but maybe in a few months we can see a better change in Iran, and good and better people can take control of the regime. But as we see today, actually, we can see the truth. These generals are saying it in our faces. We don't want any kind of agreement with you. We are not coming to the negotiations. We want to hurt you or even to eliminate you. Of course, Israel and Jews. So maybe, hearing the truth is a better thing. And now we see their real faces because of that.
Now, in this war, we've seen two different techniques that Iran has used. First, they shot at the Arab countries around them, even those that are kind of allies with them. Then we saw them try to disrupt the global trade through the Strait of Hormuz. Two different techniques. Did it surprise you that they used these two techniques?
Actually, it goes back to one ancient kind of tradition or method that Iranians had in many years ago, in many centuries ago. And also, this regime acts and does that since its existence. It's about hating, as I said, the others, and also taking hostages. They mixed these two things and they brought it also to this region, not only against Israel, but also to Arab countries. They take these straits as a hostage, and they make pressure against the Western world because of the oil crisis, and not exporting the oil to the world. But attacking the Arab countries it's because they are hating them for all these years of the revolution. It goes back to the Iranian history when they were an empire. And the Iran regime wants to bring the empire back. Once in 2,500 years ago, these countries were part of the Iran Empire. So they want them back. And I read and translated so many Iran regime articles and speeches of seniors about Bahrain is ours, UAE is ours, Dubai was once an Iranian port, etc. Saudi Arabia doesn't have an existence, and many other things. So they had a chance to do it, to try to achieve that goal, to make Iran an empire again. But of course, the bad and evil empire. It's not the good empire that helped Jews 2,500 years ago to come back to Israel and build the second temple. It's a very bad and evil empire. All these years of the revolution, they hated their Arab neighbors. Yes, they talked to them nice, but the real thing was hating them and making even some terror attacks from time to time in these countries. They tried to kill Jews or other Arab figures in many years, also in Azerbaijan, in Georgia, in other countries that once were part of Iran. Tolerate that these countries are existing and they don't respect them really. So because of these two reasons, taking hostages and hating all kind of the others in this region, they are attacking them. And actually, it's also a kind of taking them these Arab countries as a hostage. Saudi Arabia knows that for many years that Iran is a kind of Iran regime, of course, is kind of a monster against them. Other Arab countries know them. They have cooperation with the West against Iran regime, but they are small, they are weaker, and they are very afraid of these monsters. So this is the reason that they tried to also talk to them and also be very careful about them. But here we see the truth. I think seeing these generals ruling Iran is actually, as I said before, it's a kind of blessing. The truth is out about Iran regime. And maybe the West can understand and act harder now against this regime.
Why does Iran rely so heavily on their proxy groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, instead of directly confronting Israel? And do you think that their proxy strategy is now starting to break down?
Yes, they believed in this strategy for many years. They didn't want to bring their soldiers to other parts. They believe in bringing instability to other countries, to other parts of this region, or many other parts of in Europe. We didn't talk about that, but all those demonstrations in Europe, in US, in Canada, in Australia, those 500,000 people that shout "Free Palestine," the Iranian regime also has a part in that. They bring their propaganda and bring instability, and they want to take someday also these countries to themselves because they really believe that they are an empire. So they made these proxies first to bring the instability to Lebanon, to Syria, to Iraq, of course, and also to Eastern countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They had a huge role to hurt American soldiers, attack American soldiers in Afghanistan also. But it's far from us, and maybe we forget about that. So the best partners to do that are the poor people in those countries, Shiites maybe, or other depressed minorities in these countries that Iran regime can come to them, fund them, and bringing propaganda and ask them to do attacks against Jews, against other minorities. And it's a funny thing. They don't respect their minorities inside Iran, but they come to minorities in other countries and use them and fund them. This is a very funny and sad thing. So, yes, these are Iran regime armies, but not by Iranian soldiers. They don't want to have Iranian soldiers being killed. The former leader was very afraid of that because of Iran-Iraq war, when we had around 1 million people killed in Iran-Iraq war. So he was very afraid of bringing Iranian soldiers to Lebanon, to Syria. So this strategy was very successful for them until October 7th. Israel always limited its power against Hamas, against Hezbollah, and they thought that Israel is weak and it cannot handle them. But since October 7th, we see that Israel tries to neutralize all these groups, all these proxies. Actually, I don't like this word proxies. I prefer terror groups or terror organizations. So they look like much more weaker today. And Israel is winning this war. It's not easy, but it goes to the right place. So it failed. In 3 years, all this strategy came down, it failed. And this is actually the reason that we have two direct wars between us and Iran. This is the reason that when Hezbollah and Hamas couldn't stand against Israel, Iran came to a real war, to a direct war against Israel.
I want to ask you one last question. We know that obviously the goal is to get rid of the regime, but do you think that that's possible if you don't have boots on the ground, you don't have the people armed, the regime is just going to try to stay in power in any way they can? What does the future look like for you? What do you think?
I think it's possible and the chances are very high. I remind again that that poll of the regime that says that 92% of the people hate them. So there is a huge potential. There is a lot of boots on the ground already inside Iran. The Iranian people are the soldiers for the change. The problem with the last protests was the things didn't happen in the proper time. The timing of the West was very bad. President Trump supported Iranian people in the middle of the protest. In the beginning days of January, he said that he's coming for help, but the help was delayed. He even symbolically, I think, if even symbolically, he attacked some parts of the regime when they were not prepared, even symbolically bombing 2, 3 headquarters of IRGC that are responsible of depressing the people and maybe other strategic places, and Israel could join that. Israel and America, I think we are all the time with readiness against this regime. We didn't have to bring all these ships and all this ammunition, I think, to this region. If the people were outside and we did it in those days, I think more and more people could come out, like exactly what happened in the revolution in the last weeks or months of the revolution. Maybe about, actually it's funny, it's the same dates, January and February 79 were the most important time for the revolution, and it succeeded in that time. So if he did that in those days, I think it was much more successful. Maybe more and more millions could be out, and the regime could be afraid of them and maybe collapse, or maybe got weaker and weaker, and maybe they could run away to Russia or something. But things didn't happen in the proper time. So I think there has to be a strategy. Those two countries, Israel and US, have to sit together and think how they bring hope to Iranian people and bringing them out. Again, I think there are some leaders inside Iran and, of course, outside Iran. We have to focus on the liberal and democratic opposition, like the Crown Prince or maybe other moderate and liberal groups in Europe or in US or in Canada. And we have these huge demonstrations of the exiles who support the change inside Iran. We can use them also uh, against the propaganda of Iran regime. So I think the potential is there, but it was not used properly. If these two countries, or maybe more countries from Europe or Canada, can sit together and have a new strategy how to use the Iranian people, how to activate them and bring them hope. These are the real soldiers for the change, and we can do that.
Dr. Ben Sabti, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. It was a very enlightening conversation. And I hope that the next time we speak, it'll be in a free Iran, and happier circumstances. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much.
If you have a 401k or an IRA, please listen. Gold is at record highs. What many people don't know is this: you can move part of your retirement money legally and without tax penalties into physical gold you actually own. Alpha Omega Gold helps you do this through a gold IRA. Your gold is real, it is stored safely, it is in your name. Learn more at ao.gold/stand. Alpha Omega Gold is our sponsor, and they proudly stand with Israel.